No. You're in my other classes. How would I talk about you?
No, not anymore.
Why would I make fun of the guy who can't get us on CNN and not do anything correctly? Why would I do that?
Hey, Bubba. I don't do it. Okay.
I'm just picking on you, man. All right. Today, guys, we're going to kind of go through and deal with the two-party system. We kind of mentioned it today in the notes, but the only person in here that probably seen those was Zane, and I'm not real sure how confident he is in that.
I know it all.
But we talked about three different types of political systems. We talked about the multi-party, which obviously has a bunch of political parties in it. It's really hard to gain recognition in a multi-party system because there's so many people trying to win an election. Y'all with me? We also talked about the one-party system, which is essentially a dictatorship. You don't have a choice. That political party always wins. And then we talked about the two-party system. Now, the reason that we have a two-party system here in America is because there's realistically two political parties has a chance to win, okay? Which it means the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they always win, because if you paid any attention to CNN News, they've been talking about the seats that are up in Congress, and they're talking about how they are libertarian people there, that political party. They tend to side more with the liberal side of things, but they are not Democrats. They are of another political party. So basically we're going to talk about the two-party system today, how it came about, and actually we're going to define some of the things that we wrote down for Section 1. I'm just going to make sure that we have it. So if you guys have your notes open in Cami where you can type on it, that would be good, okay? And if I can get my computer, okay, here we go. So basically, we're going to understand where political parties came from in the U.S., and then we're going to describe the three major periods and how that kind of went. Okay, so, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong section. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, I'm in the wrong one. It's fine. Let me hop back over here real fast. Okay, kind of go back through yesterday. All right, so a couple of definitions down at the bottom we're going to answer, and then we'll move on with our stuff. The first one is actually not in Section 1 or Section 2. We actually get a little bit more about it in Section 4. But the way your notes are set up and the way my notes are set up, the sections are a little off. Y'all with me? So like Section 2 has a lot of Section 1 in it. Section 3 has Section 2 in it, but we'll keep it. It's fine. It's no big deal. So beside the number 5 there, it's talking about a minority party or minor party. Now, we talked a little bit about this. You're going to see minority parties written a lot of different ways. Okay, you guys with me? So beside a minor party, the first thing I want you to write down is a third party, or type out third party. All right? The reason being is you'll hear me refer to them as third parties or minority parties. These are the parties that are not Democrats nor Republicans. They are the ones who kind of face an uphill challenge of winning an election. Okay? So, after you write down third party, remember, just simply put down that they are less widely supported. And I guess I could pull my notes over so you could actually see that one. It makes sense. So, put down less widely supported. Can y'all see that right there? Less widely supported. Okay? The next one on your list, you have the two-party system. We touched base on it on Tuesday, but I don't know how many of you actually read the notes or listened to the video lecture. But the two-party system is what we have within the U.S. So the first thing I would like for you to jot down there is USA. We have a two-party system here. Okay? And it means that there's two parties that has a reasonable chance of winning, and that's the Democrats or the Republicans. The reason that they have a reasonable chance of winning, guys, is because they have more money and more people supporting them than what a minority party does. Okay? So that is the two-party system. Excuse me. Again, if you get confused, I have it all on the smart board so you can see it. Okay? Tuesday, again, we talked about a single-member district. A single member district, guys, is when one candidate is elected to each office on the ballot. There's a ton of single member district elections. Governor, president, senator, representative. They all, basically the majority of elections we have are from single member districts. So beside of that, we're simply going to put down only one candidate is elected to each office. Okay, and I'll put parentheses around that for you. Only one candidate is elected to each office. Now, number 8, polarity. It can be confusing, and I do not like the way this definition is written out. Okay, but you will see this question. I'll ask you this definition again. But it says it's the largest number of votes cast for an office. I want you to write down largest number of votes cast. Okay, and then we're going to add something to this. None of the rest of that is significant in my opinion. So it's the largest number of votes cast that is not the majority. And I'll explain what I mean by that, okay? The concept is this. Let's say me, Riley, and Matthew back here are going to be running against one another in an election. Y'all got me? Say 10,000 people votes. I get 4,000 votes. Riley and Matthew both get 3,000 each. Well, I won the election because I got more votes than they did, right? But I did not get the majority because 4,000 of 10,000 is only 40%. Does that make sense? So polarity is suggesting it's the largest number of votes, but that's may not necessarily be the majority of it. Okay? The next one here, number 9, pluralistic society. Put down that it consists of several cultures. And groups. Several cultures and several groups. All right? And again, we talked about all these on Tuesday, I believe it was. You're just actually getting them now, okay? The word consensus means simply a general agreement. And then it goes into the multi-party and the one-party system that we discussed. Multi-party is you have several major and many smaller parties all trying to win an election. And then a one-party system, simply put, a dictatorship. We do not have a choice. Okay? And that is basically the definitions as far as Section 2 goes. Is everybody with me there? Has everybody got that? It's all right there. I'm sorry? Okay. So, let me move this back out of the way and we're going to get into the other stuff. A one-party system is simply a dictatorship. Now, at the top of your paper, it's talking about the historical basis of a two-party system. So basically, how did all this come about? Okay, so that's what we're kind of going to get into. There we go. With the rest of this. Okay, so basically what came to mind. Oh, I got the right. Yeah. Okay, so the historical basis. So basically, guys, how long do you think America has been a two-party system? Now, if you remember, we were anti-political parties. When we first became a nation under the U.S. Constitution, the leaders of our country thought political parties would create factions and make people be divided, which, how right are they? Democrats and Republicans do not get along, right? But they thought it would corrupt the system, corrupt people, and it would basically have a lot of problems with it, which we do, okay? But from a historical standpoint, it's asking us basically when did we start having a two-party system? Does anybody have an idea about when these political parties, and I'm not just, it doesn't have to be Democrats and Republicans, it could just be two competing factions in our political system. Does anybody know? I'm sorry? Let's go back even before that, when we were actually becoming a nation, but you're close. The first historical basis I would like for you to put down, and I don't think it shows up in these. Yeah, here we go. Maybe it don't show up in these notes. All right, so beside the historical basis, guys, it's asking us when we had our two-party system. Put down since the beginning of the republic. And republic is just another word for democracy. I'll pull it over for you. Since the beginning of the republic. Okay? And the two competing factors that we had were the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist, which is located right here. And guys, that was before the U.S. Constitution was even ratified. So we've had a two-party system literally since before we had the U.S. Constitution. Does everybody understand that? So it's been around a long time now. We didn't call Federalist and Anti-Federalist political parties, but they fit the definition. They're two opposite groups competing for political views, right? So since the beginning of our democracy, Federalist and Anti-Federalist. All right. Number 2 there, it says the tradition. So the tradition of the two-party system. Your notes say that once it was established, the two-party system continues because of tradition and a reluctance to support minority parties. We don't have to write all that out, okay? Traditionally, we support one of the two major political parties. Y'all with me? So that's what I would put down, that we support one of the two major political parties. Now, since we can support one of the two, then that leaves very little room for minority parties to gain any ground. So in the second one, as far as tradition, just simply put that we usually support one of the two major ones. Now, here's a question for you that you may see again. How many times has a third party or minority candidate won the presidential election? We've had 45 of them. President Trump is the 45th president. So of the 45 presidents that we have had, how many of them do you think came from a minority party? Does anybody know? Throw out a guess. Guess, Talitha. How many? Give me a number.
3.
Close. There's actually only been one. Does anybody know which one that may have been? What? It was Roosevelt. It's Teddy Roosevelt. And he's kind of a technicality. Teddy Roosevelt ran as a major political party candidate for a long time. And then they made him mad, and he switched over to what they call the Bull Moose Party. But by the time the election came around, he had gained so much popularity through the major party that he had been involved with that people voted him in anyway. So technically he gets credit for that, even though it's, it should have an asterisk beside it. But anyway, that's how it goes. Number 3, with the electoral system. So basically, the way we elect, and we'll get into the electoral college a little bit later in this class, but you guys know that when we go vote, we're not actually casting the official vote for the president. Y'all know that? What our vote is doing is casting a vote to how our members of the electoral college for our state should vote. Does that make sense? So, which they are the ones that has the official vote. So when it comes to our electoral system, if you'll notice, it says single member districts, which the majority of us are, where we vote for one individual to gain an office, discourages voters from wasting votes on minority candidates. Election laws are designed to discourage minor parties. So basically what that means is if I go and vote for a minority party candidate, is he more than likely going to win anything? No. So our electoral system kind of views it as we're wasting votes. So beside of electoral system, put down that we're wasting votes on minor party candidates. They feel that we waste votes because they don't have the ability to win. They just simply don't have the support or the backing to win. And then lastly, it says ideological consensus. So basically, I told you guys the word consensus is a general agreement in the notes at the bottom. And so what is our ideological belief? And basically, what are our fundamental issues? And if you notice, it says Americans agree on fundamental issues. So the majority of the time, people agree on most of the major issues we have. You got guys with me, like common sense, be a good human being, be a, help the needy, things of that nature. It says that those conditions produce several strong rival parties that do not exist. So basically what we're saying here, and I'll flip back over to your notes just to give you an idea. I think it's back up here. So an ideological consensus, it says mostly Americans tend to share broad ideological consensuses. The U.S. is made up of many different cultures. While Americans don't agree on every issue, they do support the same basic freedoms, such as speech, press, assembly, religion, speech. It says strongly divisive issues has tended not to last for generations. So both major parties try to moderate and build consensus. So basically, here's what I'm getting at. Most political candidates, like President Trump and President Biden, they have been pretty self-aware and out there about how they view certain things. Like President Trump, he is a pro-life guy. He's said it multiple times. Mr. Biden is a pro-choice guy. He has said it multiple times. That's an issue that's going to last for a long time, right? So you can't really straddle the fence on that one. You're either one way or the other, and they've been very to the point about it, okay? But what this is saying is that most Americans generally agree on fundamental issues, such as your freedom of speech, your freedom of press, things of that nature. It says, but that conditions could produce rival parties does not exist. So the idea behind this is that what we are trying to get everybody to agree on, you could create rival parties. So beside of ideological consensus, put down that you have strong rival parties. Strong rival parties. And then put beside of that, strongly divisive issues have tended not to last for generations. So what we're getting at here is most Americans, like I said, agree on fundamental basic freedoms. It's the ones that tend to last over a long period of time that separate us and show us how we shouldn't, how we treat one another. Like we will disagree on certain major issues. I didn't do a very good job of explaining that, but I hope it makes sense. Okay? All right, so that's all as far as the notes go for Section 2, fairly simple stuff. So here's what we're going to do the rest of the period. I have uploaded the quiz in the classwork tab for the ones of you that has not completed your political party project, okay? Let me get off this and we'll talk about who's got what.